Hey, hello, South Central LA and world. Today I want to speak about mental health not only within the Black community, but also other communities of color from an ally perspective. I'll be taking us on a journey back to the 1960s through present day on how mental health issues impact various communities of color. Now, this will be a three-part series to where I will be, breaking it apart just so we're able to talk about this from a, holistic point of view rather than rushing it. This first episode will cover the period after the Los Angeles Watts riots through the, late 1970s, early 1980s. And then the second part, I will move on to talk about from the 80s through the early 2000s. And then the third part will cover what happened from the early 2000s through present day. So, as we all know, that there are challenges within various communities of color when seeking mental health services, and that can be due to affordability, trusting your healthcare provider, cultural stigma, misdiagnosis, and fear of law enforcement intervention. One of the many ways that local communities try to break those barriers is by having people that look like that community provide the mental health services to the community, just so it's a lot more, people feel a lot more welcomed, and they feel as though, their issues and problems are really truly going to be listened to, and that they're not like just shuffled off to the side and given medication, or not given the prior diagnosis and attention. So in 1966, the first Black-directed community mental health center opened in the United States was founded by Dr. J. Alfred Cannon in South Central Los Angeles through a staffing grant provided by the state of California. The Central City Community Mental Health Center opened officially in 1973. Central City offered a wide range of services to the local community from its location at 4272 South Broadway, which I call the heart of Los Angeles. That is going to be on Broadway and Vernon Avenue. And they offered not only mental health services, but also wraparound services, which included assistance with housing, job development, reintroduction programs for the formerly incarcerated, and then also drug rehabilitation programs as well. During its run, as one of the primary community health centers supporting South Central Los Angeles, they had a total staff of about 55 that provided the following services. It was the Central City BRICS program, which helped the formerly incarcerated with drug rehabilitation, as well as being reintroduced into jobs in society as well. They also had a day treatment center that provided support to those that did not require 24-hour care. So it wasn't like that person needed to be cared for the entire time. So some of the many services that they provided at the day treatment center included group therapy, rehabilitation programs, as mentioned above, and then also recreational activities, because we know that it's a healthy community has to be able to just not to just live in trauma. They have to be able to have recreational activities, which may most likely included playing like games such as bingo or basketball or playing cards with other people or coloring. And then they also had a children psychiatric services to address emotional behavior issues, because as we all know, this is back in the 1960s. Present day, if we really look at how things are, kids of color aren't really treated like children. They're treated like they are criminals. And a lot of times when a child has emotional behavior issues, there could be a range of reasons why that child has emotional behavior issues. It could be chemically, it could be because they were exposed to trauma. And a lot of times, within our society, especially at schools, because that's where kids are mostly at, kids of color are not given that grace, to allow to be a child. They are just, suspended, or they are mixed diagnosed, or they are placed in, they're placed in the wrong type of class and learning environment. There are various issues. And then moving on, Central City also had a community center that not only provided mental health services, but also support to the community, such as help with the formerly incarcerated, as mentioned above. They had student support, because as we all know, being a student is pretty stressful, whether it be in elementary or in college. They also had emergency services, clothing, and transportation assistance. This effort inspired the creation of the South Central Los Angeles Regional Center for Persons with Developmental Disabilities, which opened in 1974 and is still in operation today. The South Central Los Angeles Regional Center states that it has a total of 21 regional centers throughout the state of California that provide services for developmental disabilities such as autism, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, intellectual disabilities, and then other disabilities similar to intellectual disabilities as well. Dr. J. Alfred Cannon would also later inspire the successor to Central City, which became the Kedron Community and Mental Health Center that is still around today. The Kedron Community Center was not founded by Dr. J. Alfred Cannon, but actually by Dr. James L. Jones in 1965 in response to the Watts riots. Shortly after the riots, many leaders, including Dr. Jones, found that residents had concerns with police brutality, inadequate education, gang violence, drug abuse, and then also other issues that impacted their local community. The baton was passed to the Kedron Community Health Center in 1985, and it took over the contract, from Central City. This evolved into a branch that basically was called the Kedron Community Mental Health Center. Dr. J. Alfred Cannon is a name that most within the medical field may know or should know about in order to look back to see what works. However, I also wanted to take time to highlight two unsung heroes that most people probably don't know about. Bernadette Mills and Mylene Nigerie, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, are the unsung heroes that I want to highlight as they were seeking to start a counseling unit in 1976 to help Black women within Los Angeles. They found that groups such as AWARE and the YMCA were not able to meet the mental health needs of Black women. According to Mills and Nigerie, Black women were worried about joining these organizations so that they were not, they were basically, long story short, Black women didn't want to join this organization because they didn't want to be seen as competing or being resented by Black men. So Mills and Nigerie had sessions available for Black women at the Family Service of Santa Monica, which gave them space to talk about problems such as inequities in education, credit issues or challenges, prices, and then police protection, to name a few. And, thinking back to that effort in regards to, Mills and Nigerie starting that organization for, Black women, that makes me think about a service that's provided to Black women now. And that's the Black Mamas Matter Alliance, which is a Black women-led organization founded by Black women and for Black women. And this was founded in 2013 and is currently active in tackling Black maternal health challenges, whether it be, Black women not getting the proper care while they're pregnant, and then also post-pregnancy, making sure that they're getting the proper care, because as we know, the maternal mortality rate for Black women are 3 times higher than that of their white counterparts. So, what I want to close out with is that, it's really important to have grassroots methods helping various communities, and that's because that these local communities could really know what is best for them. And we can have all these scientists, which I strongly support science and all that, and I strongly support data-backed reports on what's impacting the communities, but it's really important to break down that information in layman's terms, because we find that sometimes, the federal government or state government or local, they may have good intentions, and I put that in air quotes because I know there's some people who don't trust the government for various reasons, and there's various historical and current reasons to why we don't trust the government. But, if we break those things down in layman's terms and we provide, all the data, all of the reports. We provide that in layman's terms to those local communities, have them build those programs from the ground up. We may have a better return of investment. And, just looking back to how things were in 1965, this is like 1965, and all of the efforts that we currently have is, back in the 60s, there were a lot of challenges. Of course, the civil rights movement you know, had just, completed back in 1965. There were a lot of assassinations, where there was the Kennedys, or where there was Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. There were so many things that were impacting the mental health of not only the Black community, but also around that time, there were also the Native American community, the Asian and Pacific Islander community, and then various other communities as well. They, and I can't really speak on it because I haven't, researched it, but I just want to talk about it. I mean, I know what was going on. There was a lot of staging when it comes to, there was, I think, Native American protests at Alcatraz. There were a lot of things going on. There's things going on now, but back then was a extremely stressful time for that time, because I don't want to say it's not stressful now, but looking back at how things were, back in the 60s for various communities of colors, there was really no investment in mental health services. The only investment that there was going to be you being, put in a insane asylum and being pushed off to the side, or you were incarcerated because they did not recognize that you were worthy of having a diagnosis for a mental health issue. So, I just want to reiterate that it's important for us to look within those communities, just as, I laid it out today. We have Black leaders within the community that want, that basically build programs to provide direct help to their community. And we have to mirror that, not the same exact thing, but it's important to mirror that across various communities, whether it be the Asian Pacific Islander community, the Native American community, the Jewish community, especially with what's happening now with a lot of anti-Semitism. Like, we really have to look, allow those communities to state their claims, not invalidate the things that are stressing them out, because being under stress is not normal. Like, I mean, there's normal stressors, as in like, oh, I got to get this job, I got to get that. But being under attack, that isn't normal. And unfortunately, it's been normalized, through today. So, I want to just reiterate that it's really important for us to look back to see what works and not invalidate the contributions that, I'm just going to say it, that Black doctors have provided to the medical establishment. And not that what worked at Central City back in 1965 is going to work for every single problem across all communities, but we have to allow, doctors, especially after they got their medical certification, regardless of whether or not they are white, because, the American Medical Association was basically, built on white supremacy. Regardless of that piece, it's time for us to really, look at these experts, because they know their communities, and it's time for us to trust those experts. And now, when I say trust, I mean, within, let's just say a program starts within a year, people don't see quick results, they just want to get rid of the program. And this is just me speaking from a general perspective and point of view. Doctors of color are constantly pushed off to the side. They're not really listened to, and they're the ones that know their community. So I just want to close that out, just by, providing that insight. And I look forward to moving on to part 2 and continuing the conversation, because I feel that it is really important for us to, just look at, mental health, not just from a standpoint now, but look at how, what programs and how things were back then, in order for us to address the current issues today. because we keep reinventing the wheel, like things that not us, but society keeps, repeating history over and over again. And it's really important for us to provide agency to those communities to address their mental health problems. And then also challenge that stigma within various communities, in order, for someone not to be perceived as weak. So, I'll close out there, and I look forward to, having a conversation with you. Please like and subscribe to this channel. And I have everything ready. Definitely not trying to be perfect or anything. I'm just trying to put information out there just so people know what's available to us and what history has happened already, so we can look back at past leaders. But I encourage I encourage your participation in this conversation. I want to hear all of your input, and that's whether you are in South Central or wherever you're at. If you have any mental health history or anything medical related to where a grassroots founded organization or even group is within your neighborhood or no longer in your neighborhood, I would love to hear about it. And that's whenever you can get to it. Just please feel free to like and subscribe to this channel because, I think it's important for us to continue this conversation. All right, bye.